Did you know that some of Hollywood's brightest stars were all but forgotten by history, their names eclipsed by the giants they once shared the screen with? In the next minute, you'll meet five remarkable actresses whose charisma, talent, and daring performances define the golden age, yet somehow slipped through the cracks of fame. Stay with us as we bring their stories back into the spotlight. In the earliest days of talkies, audiences were swept away by sweeping romantic leads and whirlwind romances, and one actress in particular became synonymous with on-screen charm, Anne Harding. With her expressive eyes and crisp diction, Anne transitioned seamlessly from Broadway to Hollywood, dazzling in films like Holiday, 1930, alongside Katharine Hepburn, and The Animal Kingdom, 1932. Her performance as the quick-witted socialite in Holiday outshone even her co-stars, earning her an Academy Award nomination. But as studios shifted toward bigger budgets and glossier spectacles, Harding's nuanced, stage-trained style fell out of fashion. Unlike the bombshells who followed, she refused to compromise her craft for gimmicks. Her decision to step away at the height of her powers left audiences begging for one more Harding picture, but she chose grace over gaudiness, retiring with her dignity intact. Today, she stands as a testament to the artistry that once elevated film above mere novelty. Next, consider the case of Una Merkel, a vivacious character actress whose infectious humor and impeccable timing made her the go-to supporting player of the 1930s and 40s. Born in Texas, Merkel leapt from vaudeville stages into Hollywood in 1929, quickly carving out a niche as the best friend audiences wished they had. In 42nd Street, 1933, she delivered razor-sharp one-liners that stole scenes from its glamorous leads. In Destry Rides Again, 1939, her heartfelt turn as Frenchie, the saloon singer with a heart of gold, earned her an Oscar nomination. And yet, she never graduated to leading roles. Instead, she became the indispensable scene stealer whose presence guaranteed a laugh or a tear. As musicals grew into massive production numbers, producers pigeonholed Merkel into light comedy, overlooking her dramatic chops in smaller studio dramas. It wasn't until decades later, when retrospective screenings reminded viewers of her versatility, that Merkel's full contribution to cinema began to receive belated acclaim. By the mid-1930s, the world was aching for female heroes who could match their rugged male counterparts, and Helen Twelvetrees answered the call. With a name as memorable as her performances, Twelvetrees brought a rare intensity to roles that demanded both vulnerability and steeliness. In Millie, 1931, she portrayed a woman wronged by love who finds her own voice, earning audiences sympathy and praise. In Backstreet, 1932, her portrayal of a devoted mistress battling societal condemnation delivered the film's emotional core. Yet Twelvetrees' streak of melodrama bore the brunt of critics who dismissed her emotional candor as overwrought. As the production code tightened its stranglehold, her roles grew staid, and by the late 30s, she was relegated to be pictures and uncredited parts. Twelvetrees' descent into obscurity reminds us how quickly Hollywood's fickle favor can fade, even for actresses whose early careers burn brightest. Amid these rising stars, one figure, Deanna Durbin, revolutionized the concept of the ingenue. Discovered at age 13 for her extraordinary singing voice, Durbin became Universal's Golden Girl in 1936, starring in light musical comedies that outgrossed more adult fare. Her wholesome image and crystal-clear soprano made her a role model for Depression-era audiences craving innocence. Films like Three Smart Girls, 1936, and Mad About Music, 1938, turned her into America's sweetheart overnight, and by the time she left Hollywood at 25, she had saved Universal from bankruptcy. Yet in choosing domestic life over further stardom, Durbin baffled studio heads and critics alike. Her self-imposed exit erased her from popular memory far faster than any scandal could have. Despite earning the era's highest fan mail counts, Durbin's legacy slipped into footnotes, until rediscovery by classic film buffs decades later reignited interest in her singular combination of talent and integrity. Finally, no list of overlooked icons would be complete without mentioning Louise Rayner, the first actress to win back-to-back Oscars for The Great Ziegfeld, 1936, and The Good Earth, 1937. Born in Germany, Rayner's subtle, naturalistic performances stood in stark contrast to the theatrical style still dominant in Hollywood. Her radiant portrayal of Anna Held and Olan showcased an emotional depth that seemed years ahead of its time. But studio politics and internal rivalries at MGM relegated Rayner to minor parts soon after her victories, and by 1939 she had chosen to leave Hollywood entirely. For decades, her achievement was overshadowed by the flashier Oscar winners who followed. Only in recent retrospectives has Rayner's brief, yet brilliant run been celebrated as one of cinema's most extraordinary bursts of artistry. These five women, Anne Harding, Una Merkel, Helen Twelvetrees, Deanna Durbin, and Louise Rayner, represent the many faces of Hollywood's golden age whose brilliance was sidelined by changing tastes, rigid studio systems, or personal choice. Their stories remind us that fame is never guaranteed, even for the most gifted performers. In Part 2, we'll explore how their legacies endured through wartime cinema, post-war renaissances, and modern rediscoveries that finally restored these unsung heroines to their rightful place in film history. By the time World War II engulfed the globe, these five actresses, though all but absent from the marquee, found ways to shape cinema behind the scenes and inspire the home front. Anne Harding, whose voice had once been silenced by studio whim, joined the war bond tours, traveling from coast to sing and speak for America's troops. In faded newsreels, you can still hear her rich mezzo-soprano rendition of patriotic songs, galvanizing crowds at packed stadiums. While the cameras no longer pointed at her in new Hollywood pictures, Harding's wartime presence reminded fans that star power could transcend the silver screen and rally an entire nation. Una Merkel, ever the scene stealer, parlayed her comedic gifts into radio and early television variety shows. Broadcasting live to millions, she brought levity to anxious families listening for updates from overseas. Her quick quips and warm Texan drawl became familiar as any movie star's face, and in a way, the medium that once sidelined her in films elevated her as a household name. Behind the laughter, Merkel quietly mentored younger actresses struggling to break into wartime studio rosters depleted by enlisted leading men. Though her film roles dwindled in the 40s, her influence on radio and TV performers paved the way for character-driven comedy you see today. Helen Twelvetrees' post-pre-code melodramas found new life on Armed Forces Radio, where her greatest hits, Millie crisis scenes, backstreet heartbreak, played on loop for soldiers desperate for escapes. Twelvetrees leaned into these broadcasts, recording special episodes where she read letters from fans and offered encouragement to listeners overseas. In doing so, she transformed from a tragic heroine into a comforting companion for thousands of GIs. After the war, as Hollywood shifted toward noir and frontier epics, she embraced roles behind the camera, advising screenwriters on female perspective. Twelvetrees' pivot to script consultancy influenced the gritty, complex women of post-war cinema, even if her face never reappeared in headlines. Meanwhile, Deanna Durbin's caught off-screen in 1949 to marry and raise a family, but her legacy quietly endured. Her pre-teen triumphs had given Depression-era America hope. Now, film studios scoured archives and reissued her musicals, drawing new audiences enthralled by her teenage charm. In Parisian cabarets and Argentine cinemas, Durbin's voice crackled through vintage projectors, sparking a global revival of her repertoire. When Columbia Pictures mounted a 1957 retrospective of her films, lines snaked around the block in New York and Los Angeles. Suddenly, the girl who had vanished at 25 was rediscovered, proof that true talent outlives self-imposed retirement. Louise Rayner's post-Oscar departure from MGM led her to the London stage and European art house films, where critics lauded every nuanced expression she brought to deeply human roles. Decades later, as film scholars excavated early Oscar history, Rayner's consecutive wins emerged as a statistical marvel and a testament to the studio system's lost potential. In 1983, the Academy invited her back to present an honorary award, and audiences witnessed a tearful reunion with old Hollywood. Press coverage described a legend reborn. Rayner's rediscovery sparked fresh academic interest, leading to restored prints of The Good Earth screened at MoMA and the Cinémathèque Française. The ripple effects of these unsung heroines extend into modern performances. You see Harding's influence in the precise diction and stage-to-screen techniques of today's Oscar nominees. Merkel's gift for comedic timing echoes in beloved TV character actors. Twelvetrees' wartime broadcasts foreshadow podcast storytelling that blends celebrity and personal connection. Durbin's joyful purity resonates in family-friendly musicals on streaming platforms, and Rayner's nuanced realism paved the way for method-influenced actresses who demand authenticity. Film restoration projects, like those led by the Criterion Collection, have painstakingly remastered Anne Harding's early talkies with crisp sound and luminous film stock, reintroducing her to cinephiles who flock to Blu-ray and boutique screenings. Una Merkel's radio programs have been digitized and archived by the Library of Congress, offering historians unprecedented insight into mid-century broadcast culture. Twelvetrees' behind-the-scenes papers now reside at UCLA's Film and Television Archive, where researchers mine her margins for notes on female character arcs. Durbin's wardrobe pieces, once stored in Universal's dusty vaults, tour museum exhibits exploring childhood stardom. And Rayner's personal letters, recently published in an anthology, reveal a woman determined to control her own narrative long before celebrity branding was a thing. Even the Academy itself has belatedly honored these women. In 2019, a special Unearthed Treasures program at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures featured restored prints and panel discussions focused on leading ladies who'd been overlooked. Press releases highlighted Deanna Durbin's record-breaking box office, while film scholars championed Louise Rayner's groundbreaking naturalism. Anne Harding received a posthumous star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in an intimate ceremony attended by descendants and devoted fans. Each of these tributes underscores a critical shift. Hollywood is finally ready to acknowledge that its storied past includes far more than marquee names. So why were these actresses forgotten in the first place? The mechanics of the studio era favored repeatable star formulas, glamour over grit, spectacle over subtlety. Leading men were marketed as flags of continuity. Female leads were often swapped out to keep the product fresh. Market research, as crude as it was, suggested that male and female audiences responded differently to established tropes, pressuring studios to churn out safe, profitable images rather than nurture the depth that stars like Harding and Rayner offered. Moreover, the advent of television in the 1950s siphoned off mass audiences, prioritizing current personalities in news and variety over vintage celluloid. These structural forces, more than a lack of talent, relegated brilliant performers to footnotes. Today, the internet and streaming platforms provide new avenues for rediscovery. Classic channels curate Anne Harding's romantic comedies. Nostalgia podcasts delve into Una Merkel's happiest on-screen moments. Social media reels highlight Helen Twelvetrees' most impassioned tear-jerkers. A grassroots movement. Film buffs tagging studios with hashtags like Remember Durbin and Louise Rayner Reborn has prompted studios to release limited edition box sets and host virtual queue, and as with living relatives or film historians. View counts on restored trailers have soared into the millions, rivaling the metrics of contemporary blockbusters. The resurgence of interest also reflects a cultural hunger for diverse female narratives. Modern viewers crave stories about women who defied conventions, hallmarks of the very performances that cost Twelvetrees and Rayner their staying power. In spotlighting these forgotten leading ladies, we expose generational gaps and celebrate cinematic techniques that prioritized character psychology over studio formulas. We learn that audience tastes are richer when they embrace complexity. Silent era expressiveness taught us about body language and emotional gesturing. Early talkies revealed the power of vocal nuance. Mid-century television introduced intimate, conversational styles still beloved today. As the digital age rewrites how we discover and remember entertainment, these five women are poised for a renaissance. Film schools include Merkel's scene studies in acting curricula. Streaming services label Anne Harding's films as restored Golden Age classics. Virtual reality exhibits reconstruct Twelvetrees' dressing rooms. Joanna Durbin's wardrobe inspires costume designers on new period series. And Louise Rayner's interviews feature in masterclasses on acting authenticity. Their legacies enrich not just film history but contemporary creative practice. All told, their stories remind us that fame is fragile but art endures. Anne Harding, Una Merkel, Helen Twelvetrees, Deanna Durbin, and Louise Rayner each blazed trails on stage, screen, radio, and beyond. Though Hollywood's machinery once cast them aside, time and technology have reclaimed their voices. By revisiting their triumphs and setbacks, we honor the full tapestry of cinema's golden age and unlock new chapters in the ever-evolving story of performance itself. If there's one takeaway from these five unsung heroines, it's that a single performance, an impassioned cry, a perfectly delivered quip, a heartfelt melody, can outlast the brightest marquee lights. Their journeys teach today's artists and audiences that true legacy requires both daring innovation and the courage to defy fleeting trends. So the next time you stream a classic, spare a thought for the faces that once captivated millions but nearly vanished from memory. Watch for their names in the credits, those hidden gems waiting to be rediscovered.